Welcome back, Knicks fans, to Fireside Knicks with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So Ryan and I were talking, thinking about what can we talk about? Not much Knicks news going on, pretty quiet right now. I think we'll do an episode maybe tomorrow about the Knicks may have two Sixth Man of the Year candidates, and Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. Could be fun to break down those guys, what their roles will be next season. But right now we want to discuss Jalen Brunson. Is there a better season than what he did last year coming up for him? I think there are some places where he's going to improve, maybe regress slightly, but I don't think it's going to be anything to write home about. I don't think it's going to be anything we even notice. I do think that his assist numbers could take a big step in the right direction. Not that he was bad last year in his assist numbers by any means. He averaged 6.7 per game, which is a career high, phenomenal number. He was fifth in MVP voting for a reason, but I do think he could even hit 7.5 next season with the addition of Mikal Bridges. I do know that last year you have Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo starting in these games, but Hart more so isn't going to be that guy taking the ball and shooting. But with these wings, with these perimeter shooters now, really good shooters, by the way, I do think that Brunson's going to have a lot of outlets, not to mention utilizing Julius Randle down in the paint far more efficiently because, obviously you have him for the duration of the season. Ryan, looking at Jalen Brunson, how do you think he could get even better? Where do you think he could improve? I think this team has so much talent, so many shooting options, so many mouths to feed. Brunson's going to be like a fire hose, just giving it all away, offering guys opportunities. It's going to be really great to see this team, the chemistry that Mikal Bridges already has coming from, Brooklyn to a team that has three of his former teammates from Villanova. Where do you see Brunson getting better? Or do you see him regressing even slightly? I do think that we could see a version of him that eclipses star and heads towards superstar. I think he's on his way there.
Yeah, and, I think the big thing for me is that he got so much better with Anunoby in the mix. I genuinely think we could see a version of Jalen Brunson that surpasses last year's, even if the scoring numbers aren't as good, even if the volume numbers aren't as good. I think on a per rate basis, he will be a better player for a couple of reasons. Number one, he'll have more catch and shoot opportunities. It'll be less the Jalen Brunson show and more of Jalen Brunson operating and conducting the offense and not being the entire offense. And look, the points per game may come down. You're not going to see Jalen Brunson, and this is in an ideal world, actually. Jalen Brunson shouldn't be averaging, what was it, 35, 33, something like that, like over 30 points a game. The reason he shouldn't be doing that is not because he shouldn't try to score, but because the team around him should be good enough to provide scoring options where he isn't asked to do that. See, Jalen Brunson last year averaged 32.4 points per game in the postseason, but he was far less efficient. The reason for that is, number one, he kept getting banged up. Number two, the offense needed him to take all of those shots. They asked him to take 26.2 shots a game. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that's like what LeBron was trying to do in 2018, right? Like, I'm not comparing him to 2018 LeBron James. 2018 LeBron James is one of the greatest players to ever play the sport of basketball, and LeBron James is a different caliber of player to anybody else except for Michael Jordan to ever play the sport. But I'm trying to just compare that level of role, that unsustainable role. It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work when you're trying to win. Brunson's so talented, he's capable of doing that to a degree, but they can't win doing that. They will never match up with Boston doing that. But with Julius Randle in the mix, as you mentioned, having another offensive player in the mix, and Randle is a capable and willing playmaker. Anunoby is a great facilitator defensively. Obviously, it takes pressure off of him. He's a great catch and shoot guy. There's some gravity there. Mikal Bridges, again, another capable and willing playmaker who can shoot, create his own shot, all that stuff. So, the Yankees right now, the Knicks right now, they need to look at their season, they need to look at this roster, and first off, they should be happy with the product they have on the court, which is something Yankees can't say. Number two, they should also understand, this team, when Brunson is going to need days off, when Randall's going to need days off, when Anunoby's going to need days off, Bridges, I don't know if he's going to take a day off, and he plays every fucking game. You're going to still be able to compete and win. You can win the minutes where Jalen Brunson isn't playing, and I think that's important. Like, we talked about the importance of DiVincenzo. We're going to talk about Josh Hart in a future episode because Josh Hart's awesome. We talk about Kolek and McBride and how those two guys rock. Alex, it feels like you can generate points without Brunson on the court, and that was never the case after Randle went down last season.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look, this bench, we've talked about it, I think 2 days ago. We talked about how the reserves, the depth, this team is going to be so difficult to maintain, especially during postseason performances, because you remember the Indiana Pacers games, and coming off the bench, we had really not much. Preston Chua, obviously, he's a okay, decent player, good reserve, with some playoff experience. Miles McBride was solid for us shooting from the perimeter, but behind that, you just don't have anybody, and like you can't play him all the time. Josh Hart was playing every single minute of every single game until he got hurt. Same thing with Brunson; they couldn't take him off the floor. The second he was off the floor, they were getting absolutely cooked because they didn't have that secondary ball handler, and all they had to do was collapse on the perimeter shooting. They had no interior presence. They were really praying that these 3-point shots were going to hit and keep them alive, and Devo did a lot of that. But now coming off the bench, you don't have Devo starting, you don't have Josh Hart starting, you don't have Miles McBride starting, you don't have Tyler Kolek starting. You have all these guys in rotational roles coming off the bench now. Knicks, I do think they still make a big move for a center, and they get that last piece of the puzzle here. But the depth on this roster is going to change the outlook of this team because Brunson, look, this dude was unbelievable last year, but they need to get him support. And look, his numbers, his averages could go down because his minutes aren't as high, but that's a good thing, right? You don't look, he can still average the same things, but he was playing so many minutes that eventually you're going to get hurt. He was completely overworked, in my opinion, especially in the playoffs. And look, when you're a star, you got to play a lot in the postseason. Not saying that that's not going to happen, but more so, if you're like, against the Pacers, the Knicks should have beaten the brakes off the Pacers. The Knicks were good enough. A healthy Knicks team put the Pacers down, like put them down. Instead, they were competitive. They had to compete and actually fight because they didn't have Randall, didn't have OG, didn't have Mitch. We're using a lot of bench pieces. Now you put down these worst playoff contending teams, and you allow your primary starters to rest. That's why the Celtics got to the finals, and Jason Tatum looked like he hadn't played. Jason Tatum looked like he was just coasting. You know what I mean? Jaylen Brown looked like he was coasting. Derek White coasting. These guys were so healthy, aside from Kristaps' calf injury. They looked like they were in midseason form. Like they had literally just stepped foot after the All-Star break, right? Like that's how healthy and fresh they looked because they have such good depth. They're able to properly manage the stamina and the fatigue of their starters. And Brunson was completely cooked at the end, man. He was just heaving up shots. He fractured his freaking hand. Like, the more you're playing, the more unfortunate and more aggressive you have to be, the more likely you're going to get injured. And I think that this is a really great situation for the Knicks right now because they are in a spot where they can let these guys rest. They can save them up. I know that isn't necessarily Tom Thibodeau's game, but he's never had depth like this before. He's never had Josh Hart and Devo coming off the bench, McBride coming off the bench, a ball handler like Kolek who is going to average 7+ assists for you, or at least he did in college. Now he's going to offer you maybe even 3 or 4 a game if he is in the rotation, is a substantial improvement to what they had last year in terms of where they were getting that passing and vision from. And then Julius Randle, of course, coming back from the injury. And Bridges, who is a 38% 3-point shooter this past season, former Defensive Player of the Year candidate, a guy that was so much better for the Phoenix Suns than he was for the Brooklyn Nets. I think that he is going to be the Phoenix Suns version of Mikal Bridges, not the Nets version where they did not give him chances. They did not actually build around him. Instead, they started oddly building around Cam Thomas. And it was like, what is happening? What are you doing? The Knicks made the move. They sent a lot of first-round picks over to the Nets because they know that Bridges was being underutilized, and they knew that he was being kind of hidden behind guys that should not have been ahead of him in terms of the pecking order. They're going to get the maximum out of Mikal Bridges. They're going to ask him to play elite defense. They're going to ask him to take his shots. They're going to ask him to be aggressive. They're going to say, hey, Mitch, hey, Randall, crash the boards, get the offensive bounce, give us second opportunities. This team is going to beat the absolute brakes off of bad teams. And that is a sign of what good teams do. They kill bad teams. They did that last year with injuries. They're going to embarrass these worst NBA teams, I think, in my opinion at least. You just have too much talent, man. Too many guys that are high efficiency shooters and have been for many years. And first and foremost, they now are a lot healthier. Devo's a healthy guy. Hart's a healthy player. Mikal Bridges is a healthy player. Randall historically has been very healthy. Brunson's has played 77 games last year, consistent. Robinson's the only guy I just don't. I know Anunoby has a little bit of a checkered history too, but they can offset him with Josh Hart. I do think that what we're seeing here is a full-scale equation that is being used and implemented in a way that we have not seen the Knicks do in the better part of 50 years. You know what I mean? You remember guys like Amari Stoudemire. You remember Melo. You remember some of the teams they had that a couple individual stars. What they lacked was that elite chemistry. You know what I mean? They lacked that chemistry that really made them go at times. This team has some of the best chemistry I've ever seen. They know what they're going to do. They telegraph, their looks to each other. They know where the movements are going to be. They know where the opportunities will be. They can spread the floor. They can dominate on defense, full court press them. I'm so freaking excited, Ryan, to watch this Knicks team. This is going to be something that we've never seen, and we saw glimpses of it last season. This is going to be different. Having a full year of OG, a full year of Randall, a full year of Bridges. I mean, come on. Like, how much more excited could you be? But, I'll ask you this. Looking at the depth behind Brunson, how important is it to have that secondary ball handler, and even a guy like Kolek or Cameron Payne who can step in and help give Brunson time to rest and not get over fatigued as the Knicks go towards the postseason?
Yeah, I want to also point out. First off, checker history. I'm stealing that term. That is a great term. That's deep bag. That's deep bag vocabulary right there. And secondly, you mentioned like depth and just again having a plethora of options. A lot of these guys can win a game for you any given day. The Knicks were winning games. The Knicks won the 2 seed. They were the 2 seed with half of their season basically. Dante DiVincenzo was their second best scorer, right? Like DiVincenzo can take over a game and win for you. Randall can take over a game and win for you. We saw he can drop 50, he can drop 40. That dude can score. Brunson, obviously, we know he can take over a game and win a game for you. How many times did Josh Hart in the postseason come up big? Not just this year, but not just this past year, but the year prior as well. Games where you have, Miles McBride cooking. You have games where, we'll see how Kolek advances. I don't want to rely on him to win games for us. I think that's a little much. But you have Anunoby who defensively he wins games for you, and he can drain threes with ease. So, Alex, it's almost like this team and Bridges. I didn't even mention Bridges. Of course, Bridges can win games for you. This team has so many options to go to. They have so many ways, and I think that's what's going to make Jalen Brunson so damn good because you can't just focus on Jalen Brunson. Now it's not a 1v5. Now it's not a 2v5. Now it's 5-on-5, and our guy is better than your guy, right? Like, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. Don't mean to disrespect. I don't. But when we play Boston, the best guy on that court is Jalen Brunson. The best player on that court is Jalen Brunson. I don't know if he's the best player on the court when we play Milwaukee. I know Giannis is a great player. I don't want to, I'm not going to go that far. Giannis is probably a top 2-3 player in the league. I feel the same way about Joel Embiid, even though I really don't like the guy. But when you play those teams, you have way more depth than them. So that's how you can beat them. With Boston, you have the best player on the court. Now the question is, does your depth match up? And we're getting closer. I think we're at a point where we can say it might be able to. Time will tell. Only time will tell. But Alex, we are my guy in big spots. I'll take my guy over your guy any day of the fucking week. Any day of the week, I'll take my guy over your best guy. Go to Boston, I'll take my guy over your best guy. Go to Philly in the postseason, I'll take Jalen Brunson over Joel Embiid in that setting. And when it comes to closing out games, I'll take Jalen Brunson over Giannis in that setting, right? Like, I know when my team needs my guy, Jalen Brunson's that guy. Jalen Brunson shows up. Jalen Brunson is that dude, right? So when I talk about getting better, in my opinion, it's not scoring more points. It's not, having, a higher place in MVP voting. It's your role in the offense. Like, teams have to game plan for everybody else now. And so when Jalen Brunson gets the rock, they can't just double him because he's just going to pass out to a guy like Randall, pass it out to Anunoby, pass it out to Bridges. Two of those guys can put the ball in the court, drive to the rim, and Anunoby can dunk. Dude, when Anunoby gets up, when he's at the rim, yeah, it's over. Like, just get out the way. Don't embarrass yourself. Remember, dude, the dunks he has. He has a good, he can. My point is, these guys can put the ball in the court and they can score. Randall's the one I think I'm the most excited for because I just like. He's a bully, man. He really is. He's a bully. And I think that kind of presence is important. It really sucked in that Philly series to know that Embiid was, he injured Mitchell Robinson. He did. And the guy talked about, I don't know why everybody hates me. Oh, I'm a cool guy. You injured Mitchell Robinson, you fucking asshole. But Randall wouldn't have stood up for that. Randall, I think I want to see Randall in these environments. With a healthy Randall, with this kind of team, I think it's possible with these guys. Like, they've got it and they have the talent. And I think that's an important combination.
Yeah, I agree. It's this combination, this entire team, the chemistry, the synergy is real. They've built something really special. A chip would we would remember this for a lifetime. You know what I mean? It would erase the last 50 years to a degree. Start fresh with a chip, and the Knicks deserve this. The city of New York deserves this. I'm so excited. We got a couple months until things really ramp up here, but we got you guys covered on all the news. Any ideas, any thoughts that we might have, especially as the Knicks look for this last piece of the puzzle with the center position. They seem to be, buying their time, waiting, being patient. They have no rush to go in. They have no rush right now to find a trade partner, but we'll see how things progress. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe as always. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Knicks episode.